Oh, I've got to press a button, sorry. Look, you know, we're not doing Shakespeare, but I had done the plays Henry IV, 1 and 2, and Henry V years ago when I was like 25, 26. I love the world of those plays, and the collaboration with David and I was about how do we take that story of that man, or how in his evolution to being a king, delve into the true history, take a pinch of elements of Shakespeare's construction and characters, but really do our own thing with that. And that's where the collaboration started. And it's been a really wonderful experience for me and David. Well, I'm speaking for myself. Maybe it wasn't wonderful for David. To get back together, we've worked together before and we have a shorthand, and to get together and really work out how we could take a historical world and use it to kind of manipulate and tell our own story that had a resonance.
David?
True. Actually, no, I mentioned it has been one of the true joys for me of this project. That I have gotten to work with Joel again and I had forgotten that we hadn't, because we see each other all the time. In Sydney, we live like 2 minutes walk from each other, and we're always talking. But it wasn't until I got into the trench on this one, that both writing and then when we were shooting, that I remembered that we hadn't worked properly together since Animal Kingdom, and it was a true joy. I was reminded yet again not only of how talented you are, but of what just like a good man you are. Because it's so tough. Making movies hurts so much. It really hurts. And when you've got people around you who are considerate of that, you appreciate it. You know, it's like they're the special people. That was just all a way of me avoiding talking about the actual movie. But I remember you came to me and said, what about Henry V? And what I loved about the idea of doing some version of the story of Henry V was that it never would have occurred to me to make a medieval movie. It never would have occurred to me to make a Swords and Horses movie. But as soon as you put that in front of me, I got excited about the idea of what my version of that movie might be. And then it rolled from there.
Timothée, congratulations everybody. Stephen Schaefer here, Boston Herald. But Timothée, I remember in the producers where Zero Mostel said, it's good to be king. And I wondered if it was good for you and what you saw as the challenges of doing this transformation from this kid who just wants to party and have fun to become a killer king.
Thank you, and I think that was probably the most exciting thing about this project is exactly how you framed the question, which was how challenging it was. And I was a big fan of David's films and of Joel's films as well, not only where he acted in them, but also the films he had directed. And as you put it, it just seemed like something really out of the wheelhouse, and for that reason it was terrifying. And as every teacher I've had in every drama school I've went to has said, is chase the things that are challenging. Your work will be a form of attrition if you keep working on the things you're comfortable with. And I really couldn't have done it if I felt like I wasn't with a director, with someone that I really trusted and looked up to. And also just, this isn't, how do I phrase this well? I was with great actors, and Robert Pattinson's not here, but with Joel, with Sean Harris, with Ben Mendelsohn. I got to be Ben's son with Lily Rose, with Thomason. So it was just an all-around challenging and very exciting opportunity to get into.
Buongiorno a tutti, Lucrezia Lemuri dell'agenzia di stampa Livre.
Innanzitutto volevo fare i complimenti a tutti, siete stati davvero notevoli. E poi una domanda per Timothée e Joel, più una curiosità. Com'è stato girare la scena nel fango e se il regista vi ha detto buona la prima o avete dovuto rifarla? Grazie.
Ooh, in the mud. We shot the Battle of Agincourt in the north of Hungary in 40-degree heat some days with that armor and the costumes. It's very tough. But yeah, how long did we shoot the Battle of Agincourt for? About 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks?
About 2 weeks, the battle itself.
You know, it's an incredibly ambitious thing to do. I remember just sitting there going, I'm glad David's directing this and not me. A couple of hundred, you know, actors and stunt people in full armour, 70 horses, choreography, trying to get the macro, you know, I'm partly talking on behalf of David here, but, you know, watching David trying to get the macro of the battle, but then the micro of every battle was designed to have a sort of a point of view. And so creating this muddy battlefield, I remember just feeling incredibly exhausted. I thought one day I was going to drown in the mud. And then one day I think I was fighting and one of the stunt guys trod into some mud next to me, and at the end of the take I realised I had literally mud over my entire face. And for some reason it just made me really happy. And it's one of the favourite photos I have from the whole shoot is me just looking like someone's thrown a pie in my face. But there was something just really incredible. As hard a work as it was, and as hot as it was, and as challenging as all that was, I just remembered being happy partly because I realised the thrill of the fact that we were allowed to be there to realise this thing, and looking around at the scale and the scope of it, and just remembering the beginnings of being a young actor or being a young filmmaker and being a child dreaming of being parts of these kind of stories. And I had such joy in doing it, but it was a challenge.
I think you were maybe still editing Boy Erased at that point, I might be wrong, where they knocked out a lot of Joel's fight sequence up top. Those 2 weeks we shot the Battle of Agincourt, which was actually in Hungary, where we shot it in a town called Szilvásvárad. And I remember going to set and watching Joel go to work, because I really had never done anything like that in a movie. And he was relishing the experience. He was having an amazing time. And I remember thinking, oh, okay, when I get in front of David, I'm gonna have to replicate that if I'm not feeling it, because as I said, that was entirely new to me to do stunt work. I'd done some stuff on stage, but never. It's way different than in a movie, and that wasn't like lightsabers. It was swords. It was medieval.
I think we have this today.
Sì, buongiorno, Andrea Giordano per Cosmopolitan.it. Una domanda per Timothée Chalamet. Il personaggio di Enrico V mette insieme due elementi modernissimi come l'epica e la morale. Lui è un personaggio che attraversa davvero le generazioni e lui come attore è un punto di riferimento oggi per il cinema globale. Volevo sapere quanto questi due elementi, epica e morale e il saper rischiare, lui li porta avanti. La sua carriera è, nonostante sia giovanissimo, un punto di riferimento per molti altri. Quindi volevo che insomma, potesse ragionare su queste due caratteristiche che sono in Enrico V, ma che io vedo anche in lui come attore. Grazie.
Wow, well thank you for those words, and I deeply appreciate that. And hopefully it's exactly as you framed it. I'm really trying to just do great projects or things that are challenging, as it refers to the first question, things that I feel out of my wheelhouse. And I can't short sell this enough. I feel I'm really still learning, and I'm trying to chase whatever best version of an actor I can be. And being 23, I'm still putting those pieces together, and truly to be able to work with Joel and Lily Rose and Thomason, and really these two, I mean, but really, like this man right here, because we got a lot of stuff going on in the movie, and with Ben as well. There's things you learn that you could note to people, and you could describe audially, and then there's things that kind of drift into the subconscious and you just learn. And these are two visceral actors, and like I said, I feel like I learned from everyone, but I had particularly, I don't know, educational experiences with them.
I'd like to follow. It's Julia. I'd like to follow up this your question with one on my own, and it's about the way when I saw the film. It seems to me that the film is designed to speak about power, but to a younger generation, and to suggest that there are ways that you can change the use of, you can handle power differently. And I wonder if the actor, especially the younger Lily and Timothée and you, can talk a little bit about the way the script suggested what it impressed them about the conversation on power that the film enunciates.
Yeah, I'll take this one. I think that it was very much, from my perspective, one of the biggest scenes that I have in the movie is the big fight scene with Timmy. And that for me felt very much like a playground fight when you were at school as a kid. And I know David and Joel were really keen for that to translate in being sort of like youngsters, not really knowing how to deal with these mature and adult issues and confrontations. And that for me was absolutely inherent in who Hotspur was, and the way that he dealt with himself and his own anxieties and anger. He was just wrought with anger, and and that was his power. His power was his rebellion, and to come head to head with Hal in that moment was okay. Which side's going to win? Someone who's hungry and desperate to make an impact and change the way things are, or someone who's been put in a position of power through birth. And I don't want to speak for Timmy on this one, but yeah, that's how I felt Hotspur's power manifested.
I do agree. I think that this movie speaks a lot to how different people harness power differently, and we're talking about a time period in which women were given almost no power, very little, almost none, and had basically no choice over their own lives or the fate of their own lives. And I think that the way in which my character Catherine harnesses her power in a very calm way, but with a lot of conviction and a lot of strength, is a really nice message to send, especially in this time period.
I think it was one of the things that David highlighted when we were initially talking about the movie, and when Lily Rose and Tom and Dean, who's not here but who plays Prince John in the movie, were cast, was this idea that at the time power was wielded by unusually young people, and by bloodline or by happenstance, as Tom put it, or not happenstance, but by circumstance, let's say. And I think that was something that felt new and unique to explore. I think in the Shakespeare productions of the last century or something, maybe 2 centuries ago, I was reading about this recently, that there was a real aversion to using younger actors for these roles, that the idea was that the material was so great that you needed adult actors to communicate it and the intensity of the material. And I think almost as a visual metaphor, like the scenes with Prince John or with Hotspur or with Princess Catherine, there's a hauntingness or something disturbed about young people wielding so much power. And there's modern allegories in the world, heads of countries I don't want to shout out, but there are people still today that come into power by lineage, with, virtue perhaps, but we don't know, and that wield it in whatever way they want, in scary ways often.
Hello. Hi, Helen Barlow from Australia. A question to David and Joel, perhaps. The casting of Robert Pattinson came as a bit of a surprise. I didn't realise he was going to be playing a frog or a dauphin. And was he a bit of a twit in real life? Or was it something that you instructed Robert to do? The dauphin came across as a bit of an character? Did you put on a lot of weight? How did you get into, and you played it with an accent as well as did Ben. It's interesting that there are so many Australians
saco.
doing different things, and then Pattinson, who's British, is playing French. So could you talk about the casting, I suppose?
Yeah, so this is, I think, okay, so before I say anything, I would say that, so I think as Joel said before, this project started in a way because he had played Hal in Shakespeare's Henry V, pretty fresh out of drama school, had found it a seminally rewarding experience, I imagine, had come to me and said, hey, why don't we do something? That's where it began. But we kind of worked out really early on that we were going to drift away from the plays themselves, that that this thing was, it started there. I ended up doing a huge amount of kind of weird, both of us did a huge amount of deep dive the research, which is one of the things I just love about making movies. And then we made a whole bunch of stuff up too. And the upshot of it is that I sit here before you today, and I've kind of honestly can't remember what's real, what's made up, and what's from Shakespeare. So in answer to your question about the Dauphin, I can't quite remember. I actually think he was a bit of a kind of a dandy. I think he was quite a bit younger than Rob. I think he was hugely fat. Apparently, it was historically true that Hal, as king, offered to fight him one-on-one to settle the score. Probably knowing that his offer would be refused. Although more than anything for me, I made my second movie with Rob, The Rover. I loved working with him. I loved how inventive he was. I loved how hungry he was to just do adventure, to make bold choices. And I just had this feeling that he would love to sink his teeth into this character because it wasn't like anything he'd done before. And I just had a feeling he would make it fun. And I needed, he's a supporting character. He doesn't appear in the movie until like an hour in. And it was very, very important to me that when he did appear, it was with razzle-dazzle.
There's also something kind of inbuilt in you look at history and it was like to be a good leader and to be a good king, you would expand your boundaries and your borders, and you would, if you weren't invading countries, you're a bad leader. And nowadays, obviously, things have changed. You're a bad leader if you're doing anything other than maintaining your borders. And that becomes a tricky prospect when you're making a movie about one country making a decision to invade another. And there's something I think that you see, and if you do look at the plays too, the Dauphin is painted as this point of sort of arrogant opposition, and it sort of does serve narratively also to help the purposes of kind of somewhat riling up the country that's doing the sort of wrong thing by going to invade, to kind of be able to root for them in a way because you hate the Prince of France. And Rob does such a great job of that. There's also something about the casting. I really love the way David casts movies because he cast me in them. Really, really started to look at it. And Timmy's right that you look at a lot of renditions of certain plays, and there's older actors playing younger characters. And it brings me to playing Falstaff. Like Falstaff's considered an old man. Hopefully you guys don't think I look like an old man, but 45 would have been really old in that period, So Falstaff is an old man, and the king is a very young man. It's very different today. And in terms of putting on weight for that, I mean, there was a certain amount of the qualities of Falstaff that we wanted to include. But Falstaff was based on a historical figure who was in opposition to Henry IV, had fought for him and Richard II as a general, and then had become in opposition to the church, and had befriended Prince Henry because of their common distaste for Housefather's reign. But he was a fighter, he was a general, and we wanted to do something different than look at the old version of Falstaff. But I did feel like I wanted to put on some weight, and luckily I was editing my movie, and I just ate 2 breakfasts, 2 lunches and 2 dinners every day for about 4 months. I think, is that all the answers to all your questions?
Joel's kind of a freak though, because he puts that weight, he comes like, I think Sean was calling him fatty most of the time on set, remember? But the second, like, the movie finished, the shoot finishes, and Joel loses that shit. Like 2 weeks. 2 weeks later, I see him, and he's just normal again. How's that happen, Joel?
Cut a leg off.
Ben, did you want to add something, or? Okay. Here then.
Here. My compliments on the movie. Here.
Can you stand up so that you can?
Computer. No. Here. So my compliments for the movie. I really liked it. And the question is follow up talking about power. The character Timothy is a young king, but is really searching in his attempt for peace. So this I found very contemporary. So I want to ask you, as a follow-up on power, if as a celebrity as you are now and all the actors, if he leads any campaign to sustain the peace, because nowadays the film becomes very contemporary because there's war everywhere. Thank you.
Nossa.
Yeah, I think that allegory has real substance, and I wouldn't say so much with celebrity, but more just real life, everyone's life. And as you said, there's a struggle for peace, but maybe the struggle is what's needed for moments of peace, and perhaps the moments of night terrors and things like that bring about periods of bliss and light. So I think it's true of everyone. I think, I don't know, I don't want to make a leap by using a word like lesson, but I feel like the lesson of doing this kind of role is, or to do a number of scenes where there's a lot of, let's say, people in the room with you, and there's machinations of power, manipulation is at the center of that storm, at the center of that eye. You're not, there's no ascendancy to it, there's just humanity and confusion and everything we go through as humans, especially when we're young. When we're young, we're still, I've said this before, but you're still shopping for your personality, you're still figuring out who you are. And like I said, even today you have people born in royal families or in lineages of wealth or something, and the struggle of that is less in status and more in humanity. I hope that's something of an answer.
I'm really sorry. I'm told that we have run out of time. I want to thank our guests at the table, and thank you.
No, it was so short.
Thank you. I know you were being very sweet, but I am. I'm very happy.
I think it's wise to interrupt me, so
Oi. Hã?